I am Daniel, source of all of our technical woes and moral quandaries.
And I'm Ian, probably a source of most of our technical woes, actually. But I'm gonna let you take credit for our mishaps here.
So,
Um,
what had happened was,
yeah. So from the top, we were talking about Scion.
I'm so
Uh,
sorry.
I think we are on episode 6.
Uh, we're we're on episode next. We were episode 8 just passed.
Oh, wow, that's a lot for a bi-weekly game. I didn't realize it
Well, when
started.
we started out, we were doing every week for like the first 4 or 5 weeks,
Oh yeah, you're right. You're
and
right.
yeah, you
So
you hopped in like right around like week 3, I think, week 3 or 4.
So to recap the entire last 8 episodes, stuff happened and it was intense. But what matters for Liam is that he's having a bit of a quandary. He's at an impasse. There's a dilemma. He doesn't really care that much about doing the right thing, and I don't know how you want to introduce this into the story, but Liam doesn't really care about having a sister either. So I am waiting for an opportunity to come in,
For
and I'm really hoping people aren't watching that might carry these spoilers. But um, yeah, Liam is about to piss a lot of people off in a short period of time, I think.
so I'm all about it. I really am. Because there's a lot of shit that's gonna happen in next episode. Because I Scion is very much very episodic, like the seasons of a TV show.
Yes.
So I've always envisioned like either episode 9 or 10 being the leading up to the season finale. Um, and I've been trying to like drop hints and everything, a little bit of lore every once in a while about like an
Right.
overarching plot. And at this point in the game, I really want to push, and I'm trying not to like be super heavy handed with it, but I'm really trying to show the um, the gray areas of morality when it comes to like wartime efforts. Like, yeah, you might think that you're doing the right thing because you have a god on your side, but at the end of the day, you just murdered hundreds and thousands of people. Like,
Yeah.
but like, also to throw it out there, some interesting shit happened with Liam's boss, his old boss. Uh, yeah, so you might want to look into that when you
Okay.
get up.
All right. So here's a hypothetical. If I were to drop some real game changers in the middle, if like pretend I didn't even say any of this to you, and in the middle of a session, without you having planned these things to occur, if I just dropped a bunch of really out there left field stuff for Liam to do,
Mm-hmm.
how would you respond to that?
I'd roll with it. So my thing is, my main motto as a GM is I make the sandbox and you guys play in it. Like
Right.
I have a storyline and I have things that I want to happen in a game, and I bullet point these things out. If I will drop hints of like, hey, maybe you should go to this temple, or maybe you should do this temple, or it was rumored that such and such was here. If you guys do that, then great, all the better. But if you don't and you just run to destroy buildings or murder innocent women in the sewers, then you know what? I'll just slide in little bullet points every
We
once in a
were
while
attacked. We were attacked
by
in
a
the
can
dark.
of soup.
Uh, it was a projectile weapon. I'll improvised. Okay, I'll give that. But I was protecting my life. I'm sorry I'm so good at it.
I'm fighting for my life.
I messed up. But that's not even the worst thing that Liam could do. So
Right. But what I'm saying is now that you guys had like you're not don't think that you have to do the right thing or what the
right.
party wants to do or whatever. I mean honestly it would make the game like easier, but I've never read a book in my whole life and been like, "Oh, well everybody cooperated this whole time. It was a great book." Like it was like
Yeah,
spot on. What makes a story great is the contention and the
the
like
conflict.
conflict of
Yeah.
everything. So if everybody's just getting along to get along, like yeah, it'll make the story flow easier. But is anybody really gonna want to watch it?
The weird thing is I've noticed if you make everybody on the same side for something, it takes 30 minutes to write 5 minutes worth of content. Um, but if you introduce if you introduce conflict, it's the opposite. So I will spend 3 hours writing a segment of a session that involves all of the players unified against something. You blow through it because you quickly decide you're on the same page and just sort of attack it. Um, all I need to do is say two people want the same thing, and I can go take a nap as a GM because the party will take care of it. So
Right.
like for the last session, last two kind of for Pathfinder Age of Ashes, I just decided there were things that weren't mutually exclusive and were player goals. So you were in a faction that rivaled another player's faction.
Right. That's
I
good.
didn't have to write anything. You guys did all the writing. You did this crazy back and forth, and I just sort of sat there. And then like the moral conflicts, which is it's changing my mind about having evil players in a party. I used to think it was inherently a bad idea, but you should almost try to have someone of a different alignment unique to that alignment in a party. Like everybody should be a different alignment, I think.
Right.
Because even people who are pretty much on the same side can still disagree. So Rune and Salix, Rune being more lawful good and Salix probably being more chaotic good, you had plenty of things to disagree about and plenty of things to argue about and sort of threaten each other about. And I didn't have to write any of it
It
because these
was
were the characters that you were creating.
it was strongly veiled threats. Like that's what I'm throwing
It
out. Just
Yeah, and I know that from a meta perspective, you guys probably wouldn't let it get to that. Probably. But the tension was there and it was very enjoyable
right.
for just what it was because I genuinely didn't know. There were like four different people and who are kind of allied with four different factions. Um, yeah, and that's another thing that I found was interesting. I haven't ever gotten into writing about factions because I felt like they're really high level and they end up just being the GM talking about like world building that they enjoyed and not in ways that relate to the player.
Right.
And I'm always worried about writing my story like it's an encyclopedia instead of just a fun story about players. So I was hesitant, but I think it's turned out okay. With just the I haven't
So
gotten too into it and I've sort of just let it kind of run and a lot of it's improv, but
so from a player point, um, like I enjoy the story and I enjoy factions like whenever a story comes to a point where it has different factions, like rather that faction be just blatantly called factions or like splinter cells or of like guilds or something like that. I love it because it shows how groups of people classify themselves to accomplish goals, and it showed like
right.
so if someone comes up to the Crimson Ravens and it's a bunch of people standing around all in like bloodied clothes and everything, you're like Like, oh, I have this problem. I saw somebody robbing somebody over on the other street. You know what's gonna happen. You know when you ask those people
Yeah.
something like they're gonna go murder somebody. They're gonna
Yeah.
drag them into the park amidst parents playing with their children and murder somebody. And I would love it.
Yeah. There definitely has to be a, an amount of overlap so that factions have something in common, but otherwise they're very different. Um, and I think I've sort of hit that on most of the things. There are some factions where it's like, I'm not really feeling it. I know they need to be in here right now, but I don't know where to include them.
Right.
So I glossed over a few of them that I'll return to later. But yes, I thought it was a hoot to put people in different groups. I've also been enjoying introing characters separately and then making them sort of come together. So like different characters are doing their own thing, and then something, there's a scene for each character individually, and then a scene that sort of brings everybody together.
Right.
Because
And
I've sometimes I've accidentally made the party seem like an inseparable unit, and it's not the case for this game. At least I don't like
so
the idea of like the party being like traveling together for every single thing.
my thing when it comes to that is like I hate when people are like when the term of don't let the party split happen or no party splits. Like I understand in a generic old style campaign, like you're dungeon crawling, you're going room to room and you're trying to fight this. But in the games that I like to play in where like you're evolving through a story, you have to have party split. Like it's
Yeah,
how you develop strong, compelling stories and overarching themes. Like you could develop like side quests and things like that, like a person, like a character quest that's important to them. You can't be with a party, and I feel like as a GM, players like to have their separate time to shine that nobody impedes on. Nobody
yeah.
can hop in and be like, oh, well, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, no. I literally have a microphone in my hand. Like, I'm singing a song. You can't just hop on, get on. The bouncers will throw you out.
Yeah, and it's sort of like reading a novel that shows two people's voices and sort of bounces between them during the chapters. It's so common, and it helps so much to have time between certain beats in the story. So in
Definitely.
Scion, you had two, the party was split into two groups, and it was perfect. You had conversations between two people, which is super easy to role play. You don't have to like, it's not a complicated dance. They say something, you have something to return. You can make decisions without having to put everything to a vote. And then the most important thing is you were like, hey, here's a crazy plot twist, and we'll get back to you. And the two players on one side of this crazy experience gets to sit and think for a little bit about how they're going to take it. And you sort of, and it shows because when you come back to the scene, instantly it's like we knew what we wanted to do. Even though realistically we wouldn't actually have that time, but it just ends up being a better story, I
Right.
think.
And I think like when you're doing like fast paced games where you're like splitting between like the group split where you got these characters over here and these characters over here, it's good to give some like the groups time to adjust. Like, how would you react in a high stress situation needs to be how your character would react and not how you, Ian, would react. Like, so
Right.
if I want to give you a little bit of extra time and drop a bombshell on you, like, oh, Liam, your arm gets ripped off. Um, but wait, now we're gonna go over here to somebody else. You think about
Yeah.
how you would react because it could be completely different.
Yeah. It just gives you time to fill the mental space and sort of paint a picture. Um,
Hold on.
it's really,
We have a question. Uh, Resident Moon asked, "Does the tendency to sit back and watch as a GM ever bleed over to your PC in a different game?" So Um, for me, uh, I it's hard to explain because there's moments like since Pathfinder when we have a full party and like it's sometimes you just have to sit back and you have to view as a
Yeah,
player. And like sometimes there's scenes between two different characters that I'm not even a part of, so I shouldn't know that. So I try not to like fully check out mentally, but I will kind of go off and just start thinking about other things of what Salix would be doing or something like that. But
right.
on the same breath, like in like Star Wars, um, it's me, James, and Sam, and it's kind of like playing a game of chess. Like we
Yeah,
we have three people who are acting out of very different goals, but we are maneuvering around each other. So, and especially like, and that's why I love playing with Sam so much, and I want to play with her in more games going forward, because like I have to think with her character like three steps ahead. Like I'm like, if she does this, need to react this way to get to this point. But in that to get from point A to point B, I need to do C, D, and E
yeah.
first to avoid conflict. Because we're like, it's great. I love
She
it.
brings the conflict.
right,
It
right,
was like episode 17 or something. She brought a character plot twist that just absolutely blew my mind
right.
with Mitchell's character's story arc and his spouses. It was incredible. And I wasn't expect like all of our jaws just dropped. It was so good. Um, yeah, I think what GMing has taught me to uh, carry the burden of being more descriptive when I play games. But other than that, I almost wonder if it's made me a worse player. It's hard. It's
I
really hard to separate being a player and being a GM.
I feel you on that one because like I going into it, I there's some moments like in games where I want to describe like I have a vision of how it is in my head and I'm like, oh, and I just start rambling off like, wait, maybe it wouldn't be like this. Maybe the GM would want to describe it differently. Like
Right.
I am very much like I watch a ton of martial art movies and like am frequently watching like training videos on like weapons training and things like that. So when like Salix is making attacks, I want to like super describe him out like, oh, he's doing like a draw from the belt stance, and I have to stop because I will go into too much detail and be there for 10 minutes.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes you just have to like, nah, just cut it. Just cut it. And like talking about this campaign, this part of the campaign for Pathfinder takes place in a city that I have spent so many hours on. The amount of world building for this city is it's incredible. And I have to stop myself because I could go on about certain things.
Right,
And I've been in the situation when I've seen GMs do that, where they're like, hi, here's my binders of details about a city. It's like sometimes you got to not and you just got to improvise and just throw in stuff that's like flashy and fun.
right,
Um, and like I don't want to know how many acres of farmland are outside the city. You can say there's farms. That's cool too. We'll just visit. I don't need like your census data. You know what I mean? It's
right.
hard to not like bring that when you have it.
Right, no, I
Um,
got you.
you just have to just and sometimes I create uh, story arcs. There are a lot of NPCs that just ended up not doing what I built them to do because of just sheer circumstance. Um, there were some NPCs that are still present that were like originally intended to be potential love interests for characters, but one character will just not go somewhere to some part of town, at the right time, and then it never happened, and they became close to like a different character. Yeah, there's like a dozen NPCs that just do completely different things than I originally intended.
Right.
Um, it's kind of weird. How's your what's it like building NPCs in a setting that's sort of modern? I guess modern at its core.
So it's difficult and easy at the same time because the fact is like I can manipulate things on a level because there's also the supernatural aspect of it. Um, but I have to give drawbacks on certain things. But
Right.
when creating an NPC, anybody that's worth interacting with from for like the Scions are also like supernatural beings of some sort. So um, it's a little difficult, honestly. Like Nick, Heba, and X are based off of some of my favorite characters I've ever written. Like I wrote these people into like stories before, and like these are characters like that I have had floating around in my head for years, and they have super in depth personalities, and I was able like bringing them to life in here was just it was super easy. Um, but again, like with you and your hours in the city, like I have to stop myself from going on with them.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I've experienced that where you notice a player or an NPC that just has too much detail, and it begs the question as to what this thing was before it became an NPC. And I've have experienced before with GMs that put so much attention on certain NPCs, um, to the point where you're like, so are you? Am I an NPC in this NPC's game? Like, what's happening here? Why am I being looked down on by
right.
this person that is not playing the game? Yeah, it's weird. And then there's always like, there's of course there's the GM using NPCs as player thing, but I'm not going to get into that. It's hard to balance because you
So
always have to remember like this is a story that belongs to the people in front of me and nobody I've written.
right, and I mean like I like that begs the question of when you when you're interacting with a PC as an NPC, when do you call it quits? Because like all of like a lot of the interactions that I do with you guys as Scions, you are very much like the bottom rung of the ladder, interacting with all these like super high divinity beings. So they look down on you, and it comes through in their conversations, and it's supposed to exude like that condescension. But like how much like when as a GM going forward, like when do you decide that's it's too much go to put through, and you're taking
Yeah.
away from the players fun?
Well, first, if I'm going to act a certain way in character, I have to make sure that I've painted a picture that's immersive enough so that way when I do it, it doesn't come off as me doing it. Before, if I when I used to like starting off as a GM, I hardly ever got in character and sort of did everything in third person. I feel like that's what a lot of new GMs do. They say, "Oh, this NPC tells you this." And then the new player is like, "Oh, then I tell the NPC this." And then you're like, "Oh," and they respond with this. And it's sort of like you're just fondly remembering a game of Dungeons and Dragons instead of actually playing it. Uh, if we're not immersive, I'm not going to be like a condescending ass because then it just sounds like me doing it.
Right.
But if we have somehow created a scene where it feels like it is not me speaking and it's an NPC, it's safer, I think, to be really outlandish without it coming off as you just trying to be that way to somebody. So like if I'm going to be agitated or condescending or super rude or bitter, I really want to make sure that it's so clear that it's this character and not me judging the player through the character or just
Right.
judging the character as a player. Um, so yeah, it's tough. Also, I'm hesitant on making characters that just seem super cool. I feel like it's the most inorganic decision you can make. And you sort of like the first thing I do with a character is just basically give them a metaphorical funny hat, like something you could make fun of them for or sort of laugh at about them that takes them down from that like James Bond level of like I'm perfect to
Right.
like I'm a weird dude and that's okay. And I think that sort of makes people a little bit more believable. I've definitely played in games where it's like why is it's like why are all of your characters the coolest people I've ever met? I don't like that. It
Right.
doesn't seem right. But yeah,
They like I and there always has to be that character flaw aspect to bring the character to life fully in my eyes. Like if you're not like because everybody anything that you're trying to bring across is based off of flaws. So like for me X is very single tracked, one minded, like viciously angry all the time, like person.
yeah,
Um, Heba is very overtly sexual, and it sometimes gets her into way too much trouble. Um,
yeah.
and Nick is kind of the same way, but he just has tries to mask all of his things in weird uh, humor, like childlike humor.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're definitely a trio, the three of them.
How often do you do that? Do you
What?
like I don't want to say recycle, but how often do you carry a character from one thing to another?
So, when I made the Scion campaign, um, I wrote all this before. Like, this is a story that I have written already. I have changed things because when player PCs come in and they interact with the world, they inadvertently change things, which change how the story would
Right.
happen. But yeah, no, this story has already been written,
Wow. How
and
far did you get in that one?
I finished it. It's just it's not novel worthy. I would never let anybody read it. It's very much a the ramblings of a early 20s wannabe author.
I You're currently listening to the ramblings of an early 20. I don't want to be an author. I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to be an author.
I would
There's so many things I'd rather do. I don't know.
I
It sounds fun, and power to them. I don't have it in me.
I want nothing more. Like one of my life's goals is to have a published book. Like that is one of my
Uh,
top 5 things I want to do in my life is to have a published book.
that brings me in actually to a very relevant question that I make a point to ask everybody I meet, if I talk to them enough, and I graduate from like small talk. So Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, wrote the book because she was gifted 1 year's salary by a couple under the condition that she wrote whatever she pleased. She had 12 months. She didn't need to work because she was just given her cost of living, her means for an entire 365 days. So she wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. It was successful because, I've heard of that book. If you were given what you make now for an entire year, so you could quit your job, and they said you have 1 year to do something memorable or do something, what would you do?
Like would
Just what
like
would you do? Somebody said, "Here, how much do you make in a year? There you go. Quit your job, come back to it in a year." What would you do? Like you're just faced with it.
um
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, I would definitely try to write a book. Um, the narcissist, cocky, arrogant person in me says that I could make a really decent book in 6 months. But that's 6 months of me waking up, spending 8 to 12 hours at a computer, either writing, editing, doing other things, like because writing a book is very much pitching it to editors and everything else as much as it is writing a good
Right.
story. Um,
Right.
so it's just as much as the people you know and the connections you can make in doing so. But also there's a weird sick kind of part of my head that is like I would just want to do something absolutely memorable. If I have all,
Right.
I would want to make like I would want to leave a either a scar or a lasting mark on the world. And I say scar
Yeah.
because I don't want to do something horrible, but
I'm gonna leave a mark if it has to be a scar. That's
it
pretty
probably would
interesting.
be something horrible.
Yeah, and when I thought about this question, I didn't know how to, and I still kind of don't. I wouldn't know what to tell somebody if they offered me a year's salary. Um, but I know if you're trying to get good at something, it's almost required that you fail. So perhaps the real strategy is not to spend a year doing something, but spend a year doing something 50 times and doing it so bad the first 40 or so times so that when you start to get good, you're prolific. So if you knew how to write a book in a month, people do write books in a month, right? Um, Novels at least. Maybe the trick is write 12 novels and the first 11 are just garbage, just absolute trash. And then at the end of it, you know how to write books because you've done it so many times instead of spending like a whole year and sort of. I think there was an experiment like that where there was like two sets of students and they had to make something, and the teacher was like, here's, you have to make one of this thing over an entire year, and the other students were like, you have to make 50 of this thing over a year. And it was the kids who had no time and had to make a bunch of them, their last version, their last iteration of the project was better than the kids who had to spend a whole year because you're familiar with the entire life cycle of
Right.
of devoting to doing something.
I love
So
experimenting on children like that. They get the best
I
stories,
know,
really.
right? Just don't call them guinea pigs out loud.
Right.
And yeah,
No.
Resident
Um,
Yeah, NaNoWriMo. I think my mom did that a couple of
I
times.
did that twice.
How'd it go?
Um,
You got all the way through?
yeah, horribly.
Ooh,
It
look at
went
you. That's
horribly.
100,000 words. No,
Yeah.
but see, that's the thing. You just
Um,
do it.
I mean, yeah, you do it, but like the thing is, like for me, uh, like when even when like writing, like trying to bring the loop this back to what we're talking about. Writing for a campaign, like I have to write when I'm passionate about something. Like I can't if I don't feel good or like if I don't feel like the story's going a way that anybody will want to read, then I don't want to touch it. I like very much want to wash my hands of it, and that's where I get my hangups at is when I come to climaxes in the story or character arc climaxes, and I'm like, it's points of like contention in the story, and I'm like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch it anymore. Because there's
Eh,
no, I can't resolve it in my head in a way that I feel does any of the characters justice. But I can drag a character from the beginning of the story to the end. They will show up at the end of the story a broken, beaten, battered mess. They learned a few lessons along the way, but they're still almost half dead. Good story. I enjoyed it.
yeah. I don't think I could ever be a writer. I don't have it in me. Um, it's not for me. GMing's great. Maybe I could see myself writing some content like that, that like non-linear. Um, don't you won't catch me writing a novel anytime soon, and that's a fact.
So like, and that's the thing. Like, there's been plenty of campaigns that have turned into novels. If I had a chance, like if I had a good chance, I could go back and turn probably the first 10 to 15 episodes of our Pathfinder game into a good first novel.
Yeah,
And I feel like it would do the whole story justice. Maybe a few tweaks on some names here and there just to avoid copyright
yeah.
infringement, but I mean it shouldn't be too hard,
Take some liberties.
right? But again, uh
Yeah, I have. I feel like I have been becoming over time just an absolutely invisible GM. Um, in the beginning, I found myself saying, "This is what happens. Roll, and I'll tell you what else happens." And now lately, it's this is a fact. This is a piece of information. What do you do with it? I'm like, I'm watching now. Like, I'm grabbing the popcorn. Like, how do you react to this in detail, please?
and
And like,
I think that's a the best part about being a GM. Like, being able to see the world you built being interacted with, and watching the people just take this little piece of information, like this little piece, take it and run with it, and just make something totally
yeah,
different than you had ever envisioned. You're like, that that is amazing. And that's the best part about GMing anything. Like, that's the only reason I like to do it. Otherwise, I would just
I
be a player forever.
I think my most favorite moments in GMing, I think the best, most exhilarating part about being a GM on the small scale is delivering a plot twist in real time and seeing people's reactions when it happens. Like when it goes off and people are just like, and you can just hear the, no.
So,
And sometimes it's planned and sometimes it's not, but it's euphoric, that feeling
Ian,
of like, yes, I just shocked you.
there was some plot twist last game in Scion, and you were not around for it, and I got those reactions.
Don't break my heart.
You
Break my
break my
heart.
heart.
I
You and
can't
your
wait for Liam to
headaches.
come back.
Oh no, it was your you and your being a good person and taking care of
My
people.
babysitting.
Right.
I can't believe you'd call my nephew a headache. It's so rude.
I was talking. You had a headache the next day.
How was Are you interested in joining any of these campaigns that you're not currently in?
Me?
Yeah,
Like
because
what?
let me tell you about Static Dawn. It has been a hoot. I don't think I don't think we've actually been players together in a game since City of Mist.
Oh my god, that was such a great time.
Wait, I think that's the last time we've been players in the same game.
It was, and that's been like a year now.
Shoo, that's crazy. That would be kind of interesting to see.
I
Uh,
mean, I'd be down to play. I love the cyberpunk scene. Um,
oh, really? I'm
I do.
trash at it. Oh, that'd be
I
cool.
I love it. Like, I changed the background of my computer today after you sent me that link. The
The recommendation.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's
and
good.
it's all cyberpunked out now. Like, everything is.
I love cyberpunk. I'm not necessarily good at cyberpunk. There are some genres in the TTRPG scene that I need experience on, and I think that's part of the reason why I really like Scion and Static Dawn, because like definitely weak spots for me. I have no idea what to do as a player.
So that I think that's like honestly, I think I'm the only person that hasn't played in a one of Mitch's cult campaigns on the Penny team.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you're right.
and I think the reason that I think the reason anytime it's come up like, hey, I need a player or he's asked, it's because I will laugh.
During
Like
horror.
at I will break character when like horror movies, like I don't get scared or anything. I laugh. I have
Oh,
inappropriate reactions to like to sadness or things like somebody comes up and tells me, "Hey, this person you've known your whole life is has died." And I'm like, "Sorry guys, I gotta go do a
I,
thing in the
I,
car." And it's not because I'm not sad. It's just I don't react well to information being presented to me
right,
in public like that's supposed to be scary or something. Like I'm like, oh,
right, yeah. I think as a player, I'm probably not the best when it comes to improvising and being a player in a horror game, but I think my reactions are probably pretty entertaining for people because I'm definitely caught up in the way that people describe the horror scenes in tabletop games. My face is a very accurate audience for what's going on. So you start describing creepy stuff, and I'm just very creeped out. And then like the sad stuff, I don't know. It is an emotional roller coaster for me to play horror, and I do like it, but I don't like rats. Do not like rats. How would you feel about GMing a horror campaign?
I
Do
could
you feel
do
like you'd
it.
be good at that?
I feel like I've put in some horror like aspects of like into Scion. Like especially when you guys got your birthright, so it was very like it was supposed to be horrific and traumatizing. Like
Yep.
you pretty much had your humanity stripped away in those moments. Um, so I think I could do it. I think I'm better at it on a more like fantasy based kind of system because I'm able to take liberties. If I have to stay in the constraints of what is real and like what is actually possible,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna be calling me on all my BS because I make stuff up all the time. But like,
Yeah.
well,
It the the plot devices that I use requires fantasy or supernatural um, phenomena to exist, and without it, I don't know if I would be able to tell a story improvised the way I do. And that is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful about Pathfinder, because if it's like if I need to work outside the dimensions of space or time or have to bend the rules of physics just to make anything match up that otherwise wouldn't, magic, and I just sort of click. Like
right,
you want to talk to somebody that's on the other side of the planet, it's a magic dream, that's it. Do you want an item that is 10 miles away because you left it? There's a portal, and somebody wants you to have it. uh, I'm going to make something happen that's inevitable. I call it a prophecy. But if we're playing like a modern game, I don't have those. So things just wouldn't line up, and I wouldn't be able to improvise. But then like there are characters like the stuff with Rune having his nightmares, but then like also people speaking in dreams. It has helped me tell a story that I don't have the chops to tell because I can't make everything line up that way,
right.
not reliably. And for that, I think I will always consider high fantasy as my absolute favorite genre of
Oh,
tabletop role playing games
hundred,
because you can
one,
just pull out anything.
100%.
You can it's incredible and it's not too cheesy. It is sometimes, but and sometimes it's on purpose. But
So
yeah, overall, I don't know. It's great.
there's a game that like that I've been writing for like the last 2 years. And when I say like it's a game, like the first probably like 10 to 20 sessions, depending on how if I play it online or if I play it in person. 10 to 20 sessions are already written. Finding a good system for it is what I'm struggling with now. because it is a very, everybody has magic, everybody has access to it, and like I really like I had how Pathfinder Age of Ashes is your baby. This game is mine. Like I this is where I keep all my notes in this for this game. Right here. It's always open and
Is that full?
it's full. Like
And you
of
haven't
just
started this game yet?
I haven't. I need to have the perfect system. Like I don't know if it can be ran on Pathfinder. I don't know if it can be ran on Invisible Sun. I don't know if it can be ran on um, D&D. Like there has to be something to ground it, like to give the basis of magic rules and things like that, and I can work within those constraints. But this is like this is what I will write the book off of. Like
Right.
the interactions that happen from this campaign that I haven't made yet, like or haven't ran yet, we'll
Right.
make that. So yeah,
Dang. That
that.
is just so not me. Well done.
Anytime I
Um,
have an idea or something, I might write it down in the notes in my on my phone, and then when I get home, I'll transfer all of it to the book. I've lost
that's a
this.
great habit.
I've lost this twice in my life.
The book?
Yeah, the book,
Did
and
you recover it or you rewrote it?
it was during moving. I found it the one time, and then I lost it again, and I lost so much information.
Wait, you lost it and then never got it back. You had to rewrite it.
I had to reread it, everything that I had from memory, and I like
Wow.
there was a good like there was easily a good like half of it that's not there.
Right, yeah, because you can't formulate it or it's yeah. Man, that totally sucks. And what do you plan on doing with it? You
Like
plan
in
on
the
finding a system and then sort of are you looking for something more generic, like a generic system to run it on, or are you thinking about like making a system for it?
oof, no, I would not. I wouldn't want to make a system for this because like it's very like factional, like kind of like how you have the city of Kintargo, like it has its factions. This has its factions of like magic, like red mages, green mages, blue mages, black mages, white mages, things like that. But that can all be categorized um, like simply by a school. So, and it's not like not Harry Potter style or anything. Like you are like, the players would be like college level kid adults, so young adults,
Right.
all learning to go throughout like the various schools of magic, and like if throughout your first year, which would probably be the first like few sessions, you would be learning which faction you want to go to: red, black, green, blue, all that. And then inadvertently, some stuff happens, and you're thrust into the storyline. But at that point, um, like the first few sessions are happening outside of these notes, so it's the characters building their own arcs. And when characters build their own arcs, it's easier to bring those arcs they have and integrate them into the story I already have written. Like, all right, Ian is playing a black mage, and he is good at summoning arts. Um, but he has an arc of, you know, he secretly wants to kill the white mage professor or something. So
Whoopsies.
he is trying to sneak into their room one night. He gets caught, kills a few guards, and now there's a trail on him. And then they'll just bring that into the game. Like,
Yeah, and it branches off
yeah,
infinitely until, yeah, things just, yeah, you really do have to just plan one session at a time
yep,
and plan off of characters like players and not what you already have. Um, Otherwise, yeah, the story just kind of doesn't like you can't really plan more than a session at a time because so much can happen.
right.
in a single game, even if it's 2 hours long. Players just totally branch off doing different things. Like basically half of the NPCs more than half the NPCs you've met in book 3 do not exist or should have died a long time ago. But things
So,
change.
so is Kellen somebody that should have died and they just kind of taken their own world?
Kellen was a throwaway NPC you go to for
Really?
healing in the first book. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he ran a temple. He didn't have art. He had a level and no stats, and you would go to him if you wanted like a scroll or something. But that's how so many NPCs in the adventure paths work, because they just don't have the page number to give you that much information. Yeah, Kellen, yeah, you should have met him at level 1 and sort of never again. Vaz, you should have killed her at level 2, and that would have been it. She would have been gone. Garsat didn't exist. He was not a thing at all, which kind of made, well,
Really?
obviously because the character, yeah, because it was just related to the character that was built. Yeah, the whole like Garsat dragon thing, none of it at all. Yeah, Calmont should have just killed him. He was supposed to just die up there on the castle. Supposed to just and that be over. Um,
Calma, the guy with a gun?
yeah, well, no, not him. He's different. And I did change him a bit just to sort of make it fit. But then like I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, it just got so derailed that I'm looking at book 3 and I'm like, I can't even really use any of this. I mean, I can use the major beats. Um, Calmont was the halfling that Monica had beef with, who eventually agreed to help you uh, take out Vaz. But um, yeah, he was supposed to sort of just be dead and it not be a big deal. Um,
Hmm.
the battle, 100% none of that. None of the last 4 sessions of book 3 none of that was supposed to happen. Um, and that fortress that Monica went into was supposed to be basically a little dungeon crawl. For each room, there's a different encounter. It's just classic Pathfinder. In this room, there's like a dog. This dog's got like 3 heads and more HP than you, and it's a battle. And then you go to another room, there's another battle, and then another room, and then it's done. And you're like, oh, you beat the guys, because they have to write it that way. They can't predict a story so sensitive to the characters that are being built. So I was like, well, I've got time. So I wrote it in to make sense in a way that the players would be invested. And then like, yeah, Wilfred, your brother, he didn't exist. Well, no, his name exists. His name exists, but that's it. He was just a name of a guard, and it wasn't a thing.
I love
Um,
it. That
but you
was
guys just ran with it and just made such good characters. Like, what am I supposed to do?
that was great. The first few sessions, it was so fun. Just being able to like kind of throw anything out there, and you just kind of took it and ran with it.
Yeah, that was fun, all right. uh, that wasn't stressful. Just
Not
like
for
I'm gonna.
me.
What's a blacksmith in town? I'm like, I didn't write a blacksmith. Okay, fine. I guess I'll bite because you said it, and now I have to have an answer. Um, yeah, it's bad. And sometimes I'll just misspeak, and I don't want to say that I've misspoken, so I have to stick with it, and it becomes a plot.
Right.
Like I'll accidentally describe a character as older than they really are, and then suddenly it's like, is there going to be a hook where they're lying about their age and they're secretly like, I, whoops, I guess I'm running with it because I don't want to admit I was wrong.
And that comes down to like, so when you're writing your notes, like your GM notes, like I constantly see you during the session, right, like turning and writing something down, and then turning
Oh
back,
yeah.
finishing up, or like during a lull while characters are interacting, you're writing something down. Um, does that like affect how you GM? Like because you take really detailed notes. Me,
So what I
go ahead.
yeah, what I do is during session, I take a piece of paper and I draw a vertical line down the middle, at about 70-30. And what I'll do is every time something major happens, I'll use some like a shorthand to basically describe what's happened. So I know in chronological order what's happened. So if like Rune talks to Salix about something, I'll just write Rune, arrow, Salix, and then a keyword. So then when I see it, I'll just remember what it was about to go over what happens in order. But then in the margin, I'll write down things that I want to be a plot twist for this session. So I don't forget. Somebody says something that triggers an idea in my brain about a possible way to turn it on them or to flip it or do some big reveal that I wasn't thinking about, and I write it in the margin so that way I can keep a look at it while things are going on and sort of wait for it. After that, I take the session notes after they're done, like in the journal for everybody to read. That helps me remember what's happened because I haven't had to look at them. I sort of just remember. And then when I'm planning my session, I don't write scripts for anything, and I never write out what somebody's going to say. I just write people's names and maybe where they are and what they want. Not what they're going to do or how they're going to do it, but what that person, if you were to actually ask that person, what do you want? I would just write it there and then sort of sandbox it where I just let things happen. So, like ahead of the battle, I was like, what does Garsat want to do? Kill the party. What does Belmazog want to do? Kill Salix. What does this person want to do? Like, blow the dam, and then sort of just remember the directions that they're going in, and then let it happen. Because every time I would write, let me write a 200-word speech. You're gonna kill the character that the person's gonna talk to anyway. Something's going to happen that'll shift slightly, and the butterfly effect will just make it useless.
Right.
So it's better off. What doesn't change is what the people want at the root. Like what these NPCs are already willing to die for is not going to change, even when situations change. So, like, Garsat wanted to kill everybody in the party. And no matter what happened on the battlefield that day, no matter what kind of paradigm shifts you could give me, he's still going to be set on it. So nothing's going to be ruined. It's not like he's trying to plan a meal, but then you guys like change the schedule and then suddenly that event can't even occur. Because I've had that happen. But if you just sort of, and then like with Demiri, the way she was going to go about it with the Warg and Lamash too, very different than it actually played out. But because I sort of just kept in mind Demiri wants Monica and or Aldonis to worship this deity, things changed a little bit and it was just smooth because they sort of just there were like a heat-seeking missile on that objective.
Right.
Um, and then I don't have to worry about writing any dialogue.
So my my way of writing notes is totally different. I will go back and since it is all live streamed, I will rewatch one of our episodes, and I will write down anything, any tidbits, and I'll watch, and I'll have it on full screen on my computer, and I'll have my binder out, and when I like as the episode progresses, like the the tells people have, like when someone's face like twitches or they're like ugh, like that, I'll take that and I write it down. Like they do not like tentacles. They do not like uh their character is a very adverse to darkness or something like that. And then after that, I build whole story arcs off of that.
Oh,
And
wow.
I haven't had the chance to utilize them yet because I very much like to leave it up to you guys, but I'm the thing is, you guys, I don't have to be heavy-handed. I don't. You guys run into your own arcs and you just keep it going. I'm like, this is already supposed to happen.
Yeah,
It's great.
that's really interesting because coming into a month of what's essentially going to be a month of horror shows, I hope, for Penny, um, it's weird to compare building a story based on what a player character is afraid of and building a story based on what a player is afraid of. Because there are things that I'm sure Liam would not care about. But you could probably creep me out with some stuff. just in a show. And I feel like that was the main difference between the way, with the exception of like the actual like having to call the X card. Of course, like you don't touch, that's not territory you touch. But um, before that, with everything Mitchell did, I didn't know if he was trying to scare our characters or just trying to scare us, because either way it worked. Um, and I think if he had to choose between the two, he'd just scare us as players, because
Oh
that's
yeah.
sort of what horror is about. It doesn't really matter how scared the person in the story is. It's supposed to really be a thrill. Um, so there are things that I react to a lot in shows that I know my characters probably wouldn't care about. It just creeps me out. Um, are you gonna freak us out? Is what I'm
I,
asking for the 2 episodes of Scion this
I'm
October?
I'm going to try really hard. I really am. Um, it is. It's you don't want to lay it on too thick, but coming up to where we're at in the storyline, it's like the perfect spot to put in some truly horrific things, either that the party's doing or that NPCs will end up doing. Um,
Right.
I love describing scenes, and try to like what I've noticed is like I've had to pull myself back to allow the characters or the PCs to describe their own scenes. Um, but when it comes to horror, it's definitely the GM's wheelhouse when you just kind of go in and you're like, yeah, so as you're standing there, this seemingly regular human being is sitting in front of you. Um, but then he stands up, and as he stretches out, he keeps stretching and he keeps stretching. And next thing you know, what was a 6 foot person is now a 10 foot
Uh,
six person that's tall, just hawking over you, lithe form, gangly, fingers down to their knees. They just kind of take that finger and
sound like
just
Mitchell right now.
draw it all the way down from your forehead to the tip of your nose. And like I love it. It's great. I just came up
Oh,
with it off the top of my head. Like it's great. Cause who
wow.
like long gangly looking finger touching you in the face? Like no, get it out of here.
Bravo. Yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that skill that apparently you and Mitchell possess. Mitchell takes it to a level that is just impressive.
Yes.
I don't know how he does it, but he is firing at the hip and it's all landing. It's just bullseyes. Um, the way he can just describe certain things, and the pacing, he takes it real slow. It's searing. It's a slow burn, and I love it, and I love that I hate it. It's yeah, it's a talent. We'll see how it goes for the. It's honestly, I think it's 4 or 5 episodes, in the month of October. I think there are 4 Sundays in October, and boy, do I have some things cooking for Pathfinder, because I realize we just sort of have a bunch of loose story threads. I don't want to get into it, but
Right.
it's a good opportunity. That is all I'm going to say.
Right. Well, so like and the same thing comes up here. Like I have, let's see, we have Scion's next Friday, and then we have off on the 25th, and then so I have one more episode to go before we get into the month of our horror shows, and so I'm going to have to hold back next episode and just kind of like and again like I really suck at holding surprises in because I just want to get them out there and see the expression and how you guys interact, so it's gonna suck. I'm not gonna lie.
Uh, uh, I have a lot of storytelling in Age of Ashes that I've yet to do. Some of character creation in book 1 doesn't come into fruition until book 5 or 6. Um,
Really.
that's torture. This campaign was very much written, um, in an epic style. It If you
That
were to look at the overview, you would say, yeah, this book, you need all 6 books to make this work. Everything, it's a full circle, and it takes a full 20 levels. It's a lot of adventure paths aren't really quite like that. They're pretty modular, but no, this is a like full epic. And there are things about certain characters that I can't touch until book 5 and also book 6, and that hurts so bad because a book takes 3 or 4 months.
right.
So I just can't. I just have to say, well, don't die, please. And if you do, whoops, we can still retroactively change it and pretend this was all on purpose.
Right.
It's
I that sucks for me, like because I was gone for a large portion of book one. Um,
I think you only missed a couple weeks.
I was gone for like what was it, like 3 or 4 weeks. I missed a good
Yeah.
portion of it, but because
Oh,
I
so you feel
came,
like it's sort of incomplete?
yeah, like I came back like right at the second to last episode for book one.
You were in session 0 and session 1.
Mm-hmm.
You were in session 2. 3. So you were in 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then you came back session 12.
Right, so I missed a large portion of it.
You did. Wow. Wait. So you missed. Yeah, you missed a lot of the intrigue around Breach Hill, I guess. Um. Wow. Yeah, you sort of came back for the main battle,
Yep.
which was good. I liked that first battle. It was a good kicking off point. Also, battle at the Citadel, not written in. It wasn't a thing. You sort of dungeon crawl through the Citadel and you clear it and it's over. And I thought, no, let's take all of the characters, make them fail, and then they can get revenge. Um, and I hope I can match that energy, this slow buildup. So we had the battle at the Citadel, the end of book 1, where you fought the Cinder Claws. Battle at Bedariel at the end of book 2, where you fought the Cinder Claws again and exterminated them. And I have to make sure I can match that energy, uh, at least in part,
So
for the coming books.
with with the way I see it, like there's different ways to match that energy. Like we have now traversed past big epic battle climax to now we're like we're in a big city with lots of different vantage points and different things to pull from. So you can definitely pull more from the like the subterfuge kind of type of way. Like you gotta listen in on a party here or get some kind of information here. So it takes the yeah, we're not having a big battle, but it could culminate in other ways, you know? So
Yeah.
the whole city doesn't have to be on fire when we leave. Or it can. It can be on fire.
Or it can. That would
I'm
be so
down
sad.
for fire.
That'd break my little heart. Um, yeah, it's a lot. It's hard to when you're branching off in your mind with possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to just pick one. Because sometimes I am writing and I mentally think about how I want a session to go all week, and then suddenly it's Saturday and it's like I haven't picked which direction I want to go in because I can't decide. You just got to run with it. Sometimes you have to be decisive, um, and it's hard planning it, especially when it's further out, how you sort of want it to go.
No, I understand. Like
I'm
I'm right there
excited
with
though.
you. Right there with you on that one.
How you feel about Salix and his evolution as an angry angel dad?
Oh my my angry dad now. It's weird because For me, I've never up until this campaign, I didn't have the scope of time that invested in a character that I do with Salix. Um, like I have made choices for this character, which has built upon a personality for them, which has allowed me to create flaws and choices that he's made that he can't take back. And getting into Salix's headspace is difficult for me sometimes because um, I want to react one way, but Salix will not react that way, and I have to
Yeah.
um, pull it back. But his evolution through book two was kind of cool. I feel like it was a little bit cool too how we did it from beginning guard Salix to coming back at level 5 at episode 12, where he has been traveling trying to find Kellen, killing innocent people all over the.
Yeah, there was a few months of downtime. I believe there's 3 or 4 months of downtime that justified him just being gone.
And then
Yeah, interesting.
now there's so it's overall what, like 2 3 years that's gone by.
Yeah, over 2 years. Yep.
um and now he's in a new city with a teenager that he has spent the last year taking care of, uh,
Yep.
or trying to be a good influence, or not a good influence, but just trying to be an influence of don't die. Because I very much imagining some of the interactions that Salix has with Aldana. So it's like, especially in his human form, it's like Aldonis is like throwing one of those teenager temper tantrums, and Salix is like looking at him, like give him that dad stare, like
Teenager Groot. Yep.
not right now. We were in public right now. No,
Yeah, that's great.
but and I try. I know I might have been like super blatant with it, but I tried to portray like his mourning of Reika, because Reika was like
Yeah,
the person who introduced him to Gozray, and he and has saved him so many times, and so he very much chalks up the only reason he's alive 3 times over is because of her.
that was great. I didn't expect you to give me that, and you did, and I'm grateful. Um, Super awesome. I think what made it searing is that this adventure path does give the players space between books. That was not yeah, this whole like jumping across the planet to Mwangi Expanse and then jumping back up to Avestan. Yeah, that is awesome for making your books sort of breathe a little bit. I don't know what naturally constitute, like I don't know how time usually passes in an adventure path. But it's really hard to put different sessions over weeks because things start to build up really fast. You start to gain speed. So like in the beginning, Rune got the plot twist that the gate is open. There's the gate nearby. I can't say 2 months later because obviously he's going to want to go do that soon. So if I said, "What do you do for downtime?" He's gonna be like, "No, I'm gonna go. I'm not waiting." So like once you start to pick up momentum, everything sort of unfolds within a few days. But I think putting time between the books is what made that scene so hard because this wasn't the grief of something that just happened. It was how you changed as a person for the long term about what happened. So like people, these characters changed in a non-mechanical way based on what happened, and it's sort of it makes that memory permanent about what happened on that day on that battle because basically every character is doing something, their personality is different because of it and not in the short term.
Right. And like it, when you gave me the choice, you're like, you can have this elven cloak or you can have this badass house. I was like, can I do anything with the house? And you were like, yeah, anything. And I was like, fucking done. Like,
Oh yeah,
and then
I
I was like,
regret that a little bit.
from then on, I was like, I tried to like not go too overboard with the house. I wanted to make it like it
Yeah.
just like a Roman like dominus kind of style house where they would train their gladiators at, with a few flourishes, obviously. But when you're like, what else do they see in the training pit? I was like, oh, you see this giant statue of Reka.
So good. So good. And then out of character Jen was like freaking out because that was her late character. Uh
Right.
Rest in peace, Reika.
I know
It
she
was
was
good.
really the best of us.
The
Like
skincare was top tier. Phenomenal.
Salix's skin has never been the same since, without that saliva,
No.
it's
Uh that
it's bad.
treatment, man.
I
Uh
but I do enjoy her new character. It's gonna be interesting because for me anyway, because I love elves. That's why I made Felix an elf. I love elves, and so I have like a soft spot for them. Um, so even though she's
this
being super shitty and like robbing Salix, like I'm like, oh, it's whatever. It's cool.
and has a thick Tengu accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. That character sort of materialized around the idea that I wanted this cursed dagger, this floating dagger, to be her main weapon, and then just built sort of around that.
Oh, really?
So her whole thing is bleed damage and throwing that knife around as a rogue. But yeah, that thing is pretty wicked, and expect to see more of it this coming October. And Rune was like, "Hey, you know your weapon's cursed, right?"
Right.
Like, yeah, yeah, I know. Not even an issue. So how long? This campaign for Age of Ashes is like 3 to 4 months per book, so roughly a year and a half. At every other week, how long is Scion? Do you think?
And every other week, I probably got another good 3 to 4 sessions in before I wrap up season one, and then I'm going to I'll bring everybody's character arcs to or try to get them all wrapped up. It's kind of hard to do that with how everybody progresses. Um, we're supposed like people have continuing to ask to join, which I love having new characters in, but we're getting to the
Yeah.
point now where I won't have enough time to give them the attention they deserve to get them enraptured into the story and want to see it to its culmination. So I feel like the
Mm,
cutoff point is now.
yeah.
Um, but that being said, about 3 or 4, maybe 5. I don't want to put like a definite date on it or a definite time frame, just because I sometimes go over.
3 or 4 seasons
No, 3 or 4 episodes are
for
so three
this
or
season.
four every 2 weeks slots.
Right, but how many seasons? So like how long do you think before this campaign is done?
Oh, before it's done. Uh Probably like I could probably get a strong 2 out of it, possibly 3, depending on intrigue. But
Years or seasons?
season. So every season's
Okay, I was
about
like, wow.
no,
That's
no,
long. Okay. It's like,
no,
oh
uh,
boy.
no.
That's
So it every season's about 10 to 12 episodes. So 20 to 24 weeks. Because every
yeah.
other week. Um, but I do feel like I'm gonna have the problem of once we go from season 1 to season 2, like starting kicking off again. Nobody's gonna want to play.
No, I think you'll be fine. We're gonna start ramping up.
What? So I hope, I really hope, but I feel like we're gonna get down to that point. I'm like, all right, this is the end of season 1. Like, you guys, there's like, does anybody not want to
You,
continue to season 2? And then people are gonna be like,
so yeah, you kind of just have to. It's weird. On the one hand, you want a sense of completion between your major story functions, but you also just need to sort of carry it. Let people get away. Let people learn things that they want to get to the bottom of. Um, I guess I've sort of done both. At the end of book one, you were like, all right, there's a portal that leads to like somewhere else. Of course, you couldn't end it at book one of Pathfinder Second Edition. At the end of book two, it almost could have ended from there. It
right,
almost could have ended at that point where we're just like, you guys won. Sure, you don't know what the Scarlet Triad is. You destroyed the Cinder Claws. Breach Hill is pretty much safe. Like you could have just left it. But the main thing, and because I do remember people saying it was hard keeping the players engaged in the story and actually wanting to follow the thread. So that's why I had Rune get arrested, because that had nothing to do with the story at all whatsoever. I was like, what better way to bring the players to where they need to go than to like arrest the wizard?
right.
You put him in jail. But you got to break him out. You can't not.
So
And
my thing was up until they were walking back from Breach Hill, Rune, Salix, and the Director. Like, Salix was on path to be like best friends with Rune, and then that shit with Kellen happened, and I'm gonna let you. He almost murdered Rune right there,
I don't doubt
right
it.
there.
I don't doubt it, and I really am really glad that you guys talked about it in game and like went over it, um, because that's another thing I sort of robbed the players of, is I forced them to grow apart. At the end of that, like the real toll of that battle was Rune had to pretend he was dead. Nobody could talk to him. He knew what you guys were doing because he was watching the city, but he was stuck up in that literal ivory tower for a year. Um, Even Aldonis and Salix were doing different things in different sides of the city, more or less. Director has been gone. He has sent you some gifts, but you're probably quite offended he hasn't even visited. He's only a day or two's travel away by ship. Not hard to do. People come back and forth all the time. He's just never found the time. Um, so now everybody's sort of coming together with major disagreements about the philosophy of adventuring and solving problems. Um, and it's sad for me because this party's been together for so long. It's sad knowing that like what could be a really close bond between characters is now coming up at like tension. Um, and that's exactly where I want the third book to be. I want that feeling of intrigue to be riddled with uh, difficult problems between players
Right.
and sort of trying not to kill one another about ideologies. But we'll see how it
I love
goes.
it. I love it. It's just gonna, like, I can't wait to see how this will progress to the other books. Like, if book 3 is on here, where's book 4, 5, and 6 gonna take us?
I have only the most vague idea. Got no clue. I haven't even really like read 4, 5, and 6. I do one at a time. I don't know why. I probably should just read ahead, but that's not me. Um, what is me is going nappy by before 11 p.m. So I think we have exhausted this week of penny news and banter. Do you have anything else you would like to include?
Uh, no, I think we're pretty good. If anybody does have any questions or they want to see us talk about something specific, or maybe we could take a week off and we'll play a different game or something, just let us know. And we'll be more than happy to go ahead and bring the subject up, touch it on different bases. We can bring somebody on. If you guys do want to, like, come on to the show, just let us know, and we'll be more than happy to arrange that. But yeah.
With that, I think I'm all set. I just want to remind everybody to stay hydrated and brush your teeth if you're into that.
No, even if you're not into it, brush your goddamn teeth.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be polite. You do you, but drink water.
Ian's polite. I'm not. Drink
Yes.
water and brush your damn teeth.
This whole show is based off good cop, bad cop.
Right.
We just
But yeah, before we get out of here, go ahead and drop a follow, hit the notification button, and give us a sub, and we would be forever grateful. I'm here all the time, every Friday with either Short Rest or Scion. We're here every Sunday with Ian on his Age of Ashes campaign. He's here every other Monday with Static Dawn, which hopefully I'll be joining for soon. And then I'm also here for every other Monday on Star Wars with Alex. We're trying to come up with some new shows to slot in throughout the week. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I got. So, anything else you want to say before we leave?
Nope.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. And like Ian said, brush your teeth and drink some water. Bye.
Bye.